My wife had divorce papers delivered to my office. Not to the house. Not to a lawyer. To my office. In front of everyone. I signed every page without reading a word, and then I added one document she never expected. Folks, Uncle Mickle here. If you're listening to this with your coffee going cold or your phone pressed to your ear late at night, stay with me for a minute. What I'm about to tell you isn't a courtroom drama or some revenge fantasy cooked up online. This is a confession. It's something that happened to me, in real time, with witnesses, fluorescent lighting, and a silence so loud it rang in my ears for weeks afterward. It was a Tuesday. Ordinary in every way that matters until it isn't. Mid-morning. The hum of printers. The soft clack of keyboards. I was standing by the breakroom counter, stirring powdered creamer into bad coffee, thinking about a budget meeting scheduled for 11 and whether I'd remembered to lock the garage door that morning. That's when the receptionist called my name. Not loud. Not urgent. Just enough to make me look up. Mickle, there's the delivery for you. She didn't meet my eyes when she said it. I remember that detail because at the time it felt strange, like noticing a crack in a windshield before the glass actually shatters. I walked toward the front desk, coffee still in my hand, tie a little too tight around my neck. That's when I saw the envelope. Thick, cream-colored. My full legal name printed across the front in block letters that didn't belong to anyone I knew personally. No logo. No return address I recognized. Just weight. The kind of weight paper carries when it's carrying something else inside it. People noticed. Offices are funny like that. You don't think anyone's watching until everyone is. The intern stopped pretending to type. Two guys from accounting leaned back in their chairs. My manager glanced up from his screen and then very deliberately looked away. I opened the envelope standing right there. I don't know why. Pride maybe. Or instinct. Or some deep refusal to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing me retreat to a private space to fall apart. The first page was right on top. Clean. Clinical. Black ink on white paper. Petition for dissolution of marriage. There it was. No build-up. No warning shot. Just the end of a life I thought I was still living. My wife's name was there. Sarah. Typed neatly, as if this were just another form, another errand to run between groceries and dry cleaning. There were tabs along the side. Sticky notes. Color-coded. Someone had put thought into this. I felt heat crawl up my neck. My ears rang. The room tilted just enough to let me know I could lose my balance if I wasn't careful. And then something strange happened. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I didn't even ask why. I walked back to my desk with the envelope tucked under my arm like a folder for a meeting. I sat down. I took out a pen. The same pen I used to sign off on expense reports and performance reviews. And I signed. Every page. Every line. Name after name after name. I didn't read a single sentence. People were watching. I could feel it. The air felt tight, like everyone was holding their breath for me, waiting for a scene that never came. When I finished, I slid the papers back into the envelope. Then I opened my desk drawer. Inside was a document I'd never thought I'd need. Something I'd had drafted years earlier on a lawyer's quiet advice, filed away and forgotten because trust has a way of making you careless. I added it to the stack, sealed the envelope, and that's where I'll stop for now. Because the truth is, the divorce papers weren't the betrayal. They were the announcement. And the real story, the one that changed everything, started long before that envelope ever crossed my desk. Before that envelope ever showed up at my office, my life looked normal. Boring, even if you asked the right person. And for a long time, I took comfort in that word. Normal meant safe. Predictable. Earned. Sarah and I had been married just shy of 17 years. We met the old-fashioned way, through mutual friends at a backyard cookout, where the burgers were dry and the conversation was forced. She laughed at one of my jokes that wasn't actually funny, and I remember thinking that laugh sounded like something I wanted to hear again. That's how it starts sometimes. Not with fireworks, but with a quiet click, like a door closing gently behind you. We built a life the slow way. No big windfalls. No dramatic moves across the country. Just steady jobs, a modest house with a porch that needed repainting every few summers, and routines that wrapped around us like muscle memory. Sunday mornings meant coffee first, talking later. Friday nights meant takeout, and whatever series we were halfway through but never fully invested in. I worked hard. I was proud of that. Long hours, sure, but I told myself it was for us. For stability. For the future we talked about in broad strokes, but never really examined up close. Sarah worked too, part-time after she switched careers, and she always said she appreciated what I did. Said it out loud. Often. That mattered to me. At night, we'd sit on opposite ends of the couch, feet touching. Not because we planned it, but because that's where they landed. She'd scroll on her phone. I'd skim the news, or stare at the TV, without absorbing much. Comfortable silence. The kind you earn after years of shared bills, shared stress, shared holidays that blend together. Looking back now, I can see how much I trusted that comfort. I thought we were solid because nothing was obviously broken. We didn't fight much. We didn't scream or throw things, or slam doors. When disagreements came up, they were small. Who forgot to pay which bill? Why the dishwasher hadn't been emptied? Little things that felt harmless, manageable. I told myself that passion settling into routine was a sign of maturity. That excitement fading into something quieter meant we'd done it right. That love didn't need constant proof once it had roots. And for a long time, I believed that. Sarah was steady. That's the word I would have used back then. Dependable. She remembered birthdays. She sent thank you cards. She asked how my day was and waited for the answer. When I talked about work stress, she listened, nodded, offered sympathy even if she didn't fully understand the details. Home felt like a place where nothing bad was supposed to happen. But even in calm water, there are currents you don't feel until you're already drifting. She started spending more time on her phone. Not obsessively. Not in a way that would have set off alarms right away. Just enough that I noticed the glow of the screen more often at night. She tilted away slightly when I walked by. Not dramatically. Just subtly. Her schedule shifted. Late errands. Quick stops that took longer than they used to. She talked about a new friend from work once or twice. Always casually. Always in passing. Never a name that stuck. And the way she looked at me sometimes changed. Not cold. Not angry. Just elsewhere. Like her eyes would pause on me and then move past. As if I were a familiar piece of furniture she didn't need to study anymore. I told myself that was normal too. That long marriages didn't come with constant intensity. That comfort sometimes looks like distance if you stare at it too hard. Now, let me ask you something before I go further. Have you ever had that gut feeling that something was off, but you ignored it because you didn't want to believe it? Tell me in the comments. I want to know I'm not alone in this. Because I felt it. A faint, persistent tug in my chest. Not fear exactly. More like unease. A question without words. And every time it surfaced, I pushed it back down with logic, with loyalty, with the belief that trust meant not interrogating every shadow. I thought ignoring that feeling made me a good husband. I thought silence was strength. I was wrong. And the first crack in that belief showed up in the smallest way imaginable, a moment so insignificant at the time that I almost missed it completely. The first real doubt didn't come with a scream or a confession. It came quietly, the way most truths do when they're not ready to be seen yet. It was a Thursday evening. I remember because trash day was the next morning, and I was gathering up the bags from around the house. Nothing dramatic, just routine. I pulled the bag from the small can in the home office, tied it off, and felt something stiff inside shift against my hand. Paper. I almost ignored it. Almost. But curiosity is a stubborn thing once it's been invited in. I opened the bag and pulled out a single sheet that had been folded too carefully to be trash. It was a printed email. No letterhead. No company logo. Just plain text. The kind of thing people print when they don't want to lose it. It wasn't explicit. No declarations of love. No photos. Just familiarity. Inside jokes. A tone that didn't belong to co-workers or casual friends. Can't stop thinking about yesterday. Same time next week. Miss your smile. No name at the bottom. Just an initial. One letter. I stood there longer than I should have, reading it again, then a third time, trying to convince myself it meant something else. That I was projecting. that this was nothing more than a misunderstanding wrapped in my own insecurity. I folded it back the way I found it and put it on the counter. When Sarah came home, I didn't mention it right away. I watched instead. Listened. She talked about her day, about traffic, about a coworker who annoyed her. Normal things. Her voice didn't shake. Her eyes didn't dart. If she was hiding something, she was doing it well. Later that night, I asked her about it. Casually. Carefully. "Hey," I said, keeping my tone light. "I found a printed email in the trash earlier. Looked personal." She paused. Just a beat too long. "Oh," she said. "That." She told me it was nothing. A friend from work going through a rough time. Someone who needed support. She said she printed it because she didn't want to forget to respond thoughtfully. It was a good explanation. Clean. Reasonable. The kind that leaves you feeling foolish for asking in the first place. I nodded. Said okay. Let it go. But something had shifted. From that moment on, I started noticing patterns instead of moments. The way her phone never left her side. The way she'd step outside to take certain calls, even when reception was fine inside. The way she'd smile at a message and then lock the screen when I entered the room. Still, I didn't confront her. Not really. I told myself that trust meant giving her the benefit of the doubt. That love meant choosing belief over suspicion. But my instincts weren't done with me yet. A week later, I came home early from work. No warning. No text. Just an unexpected gap in my schedule. The house was quiet when I walked in. Too quiet for the time of day. Her car was in the driveway. I heard her voice from the kitchen. On the phone. Laughing. It wasn't the laugh she used with me. This one was lighter. Younger. Like a version of herself I hadn't heard in a while. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I swear that. But when you hear your own name spoken in a tone you don't recognize, it stops you cold. "She has no idea," Sarah said. Then she laughed again. I know. I'll handle it." I stepped back before she saw me. Quietly. Carefully. Like a man who suddenly realizes he's trespassing in his own home. When she came out of the kitchen a few minutes later, phone gone, expression neutral, she acted surprised to see me. "Hey," she said. "You're home early." I smiled. Or at least I think I did. "Yeah," I said. "Meeting got canceled." She kissed my cheek. Normal. Casual. Almost affectionate. And yet my chest felt tight. That night, I lay awake next to her, listening to her breathe, staring at the ceiling, replaying those words over and over. She has no idea. Folks, pause for a second. What would you have done in my position? Would you have confronted her right then? Or would you have waited and watched? Drop your answer below. I'm curious what you would have chosen. Because I chose to wait. And that decision, that patience I was so proud of, it carried me straight toward a truth I wasn't ready to face. Waiting changes you. At first, it feels like discipline. Like maturity. You tell yourself you're gathering facts, staying calm, being rational. But over time, waiting turns into something else. It turns into a quiet kind of suffering. Every normal moment becomes a test. Every smile feels staged. Every silence feels loaded. I didn't become a detective overnight. I didn't check her phone while she slept or install trackers or do anything dramatic. I just paid attention, in a way I hadn't before. Not because I wanted to catch her, but because I needed to understand what was happening to my life. The first real confirmation came by accident. Sarah asked me to grab her laptop one afternoon while she was in the shower. She needed a document emailed to herself before a deadline. Her password was the same one she'd used for years. Our anniversary date. I hesitated before typing it in. That hesitation alone should have told me everything. The email client was already open. I wasn't looking for anything. I swear that. I was reaching for the attachment when a name caught my eye. Not a coworker I recognized. Not a family member. A man's name I'd never heard her mention before. And the subject line wasn't subtle. Yesterday. My hand started to shake. Just a little. Enough that I had to steady myself against the desk. I clicked. I wish I hadn't. I wish I'd walked away and preserved at least one last illusion. But once a door is open, your mind won't let you close it again. There it was. Weeks of messages. Months, actually. The same tone as that printed email I'd found, but deeper now. More confident. Plans made and remembered. Jokes that assumed familiarity. Complaints about me that were framed as harmless venting, but cut deeper than anything she'd ever said to my face. She called him easy. She called me predictable. They talked about hotels, about lunches that turned into afternoons, about lies they'd told me and how simple it had been. There were no apologies in those messages. No guilt. Just excitement. I scrolled until I couldn't anymore. My body felt heavy, like gravity had doubled without warning. My ears rang again, louder this time. I remember thinking, very clearly, so this is what it feels like when your life splits in two. When Sarah came out of the bathroom, towel around her hair, humming softly, I closed the laptop and handed it to her. My face must have been pale, because she frowned. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. The word felt foreign in my mouth. Just tired. That was the moment I realized something important. She didn't suspect a thing. I carried that knowledge around for days. Went to work, answered emails, made dinner, laughed at the right times, all while knowing that my marriage was already over and I was the only one in the room who understood it. A few nights later, I followed her. I hate admitting that. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel strong. But I needed to see it with my own eyes, to anchor the truth in something physical, so my mind couldn't talk its way out of it later. She said she was meeting a friend. I waited 10 minutes, then got in my car. I parked across the street from a restaurant I'd never been to. Sat there with the engine off, heart pounding, telling myself I was ridiculous. Then I saw her walk in, and a few minutes later, I saw him. They didn't touch right away. That hurt more than if they had. It meant this wasn't new. It was comfortable, earned. They sat close, leaned in, smiled in a way I hadn't seen from her in years. When he reached across the table and took her hand, she didn't hesitate. I left before the food arrived. I drove around for a long time with no destination, trying to breathe through something that felt too big for my chest. Every memory replayed itself under a new light. Every late night, every subtle distance, every moment I'd chosen trust over instinct. I need you to understand something here. This wasn't just betrayal. This was my whole life crumbling. Have you ever been blindsided like this? Someone you trusted completely, just destroying everything? Share your story below if you've been there. Let's heal together. That night, I sat alone in the dark living room while Sarah slept upstairs, and I finally said the truth out loud. She's gone. Not physically, not yet, but emotionally, spiritually, morally, she was already someone else's. And whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain. I would never beg for honesty from someone who had made deception this easy. After the truth settles in, after the shock burns off and leaves that dull ache behind, something else shows up. Clarity. Not the kind you see in movies. No sudden speeches or dramatic ultimatums. Just a quiet moment where you realize you have a choice. You can either let the pain run you, or you can take the will back, even if your hands are shaking. I didn't confront Sarah right away. That surprises people when they hear this. They expect yelling, demands, tears. But by the time I reached this point, the shouting phase had already happened silently in my head. Out loud, I stayed calm. Too calm, maybe. I started thinking instead of reacting. I reviewed everything. Bank accounts, insurance policies, the mortgage, retirement funds. Not obsessively, methodically, like a man auditing a life he was about to walk away from. And then I remembered the document. Years earlier, a co-worker had gone through a brutal divorce. I watched him lose his house, his savings, his sense of self. He'd warned me, half joking but dead serious, to protect myself while things were good. I took his advice, hired a lawyer, drew up a post-nuptial agreement. Nothing cruel, nothing one-sided, just something that said infidelity had consequences. Sarah signed it without hesitation. She laughed when she did. Said, "You're so paranoid." Kissed my cheek. Told me I watched too many legal dramas. I filed it away and forgot about it. Until now. That memory didn't bring me joy. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like a lifeline I hadn't known I'd need. Something steady in a moment where everything else felt like it was slipping. I spent nights sitting at the kitchen table after Sarah went to bed. Paperwork spread out in front of me. Not drinking, not spiraling, just planning. Every decision I made was quiet, intentional. I stopped asking myself what she deserved and started asking what I needed to survive this with my dignity intact. Emotionally, it was strange. The rage came in waves, but it didn't control me. Instead, I felt something colder underneath it. Resolve. A sense that whatever happened next, I would not be humiliated twice. I also grieved. Don't get me wrong. I mourned the woman I thought I'd married, the future I thought we were building, the version of myself that believed love was enough to keep someone honest. But grief doesn't mean surrender. I watched Sarah carefully during those days. The ease with which she lied, the way she planned her absences, the confidence she had that I was still in the dark. That confidence told me everything I needed to know about how she saw me. Safe, predictable, contained. She thought she was in control, and that gave me an unexpected advantage. I scheduled a consultation with my lawyer. Didn't dramatize it. Didn't unload emotionally. Just laid out the facts. The messages. The restaurant. The affair. He listened. Nodded. Then he said something that stuck with me. Do nothing until she makes her move. That advice felt counterintuitive at first, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Let the person who believes they're winning overplay their hand. So I waited. I focused on myself. Slept better than I had in weeks. Ate properly. Went on long walks to burn off the excess energy and anger. The clearer my mind became, the more certain I felt. I wasn't planning revenge. I was planning closure. And when the moment came, I would handle it with precision, not emotion. Here's where I made my choice. Now I want to know, do you believe in revenge, or do you believe in walking away? What's the right move when someone destroys your trust? Comment below. I want to hear both sides. Because the very next thing Sarah did, the move she thought would finish me, was the moment everything finally snapped into focus. And she never saw it coming. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. Same day of the week. Same quiet hum in the office. Same bad coffee cooling on my desk. This time, I wasn't surprised. The receptionist didn't say anything when she handed it to me. She didn't have to. Word travels fast in offices, and people sense tension the way animals do before a storm. Conversations lowered. Chairs stopped creaking. Eyes followed me as I walked back to my desk. Sarah had timed it perfectly. Divorce papers delivered to my workplace. Not to our home. Not through attorneys first. She wanted witnesses. She wanted control. She wanted me small. I opened the envelope slowly. There it was. Everything she'd prepared. Property division. Financial assumptions. A narrative where I was the oblivious husband, and she was the woman finally brave enough to leave. It was clean. Confident. Aggressive. And wrong. I didn't read it. That part is important. I didn't give her words power by letting them land. I picked up my pen and signed where the tabs told me to sign. Page after page. Calm. Steady. The room felt frozen around me. Someone coughed. Someone else shifted in their chair. When I finished, I opened my desk drawer. My hands didn't shake. I took out the postnuptial agreement. The one tied directly to infidelity. The one that rewrote everything she thought she knew about how this would go. I added it to the stack. Then I sealed the envelope and stood up. I didn't announce anything. Didn't make a speech. I walked straight to my manager's office, explained I needed the afternoon off, and left the building without looking back. By the time Sarah got home that evening, her phone was already blowing up. Her lawyer had seen the document. She walked in pale. Quiet. No greeting. No small talk. She set her purse down slowly, like the weight inside it had doubled. "What is this?" she asked, holding up her phone. "That," I said, "is the agreement you signed." Her voice rose. Sharp. Panicked. "That was years ago." "That doesn't." "It does," I said. "Calm. Even. And it's enforceable." She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. "You blindsided me," she said. I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "You sent divorce papers to my office." Silence stretched between us. Her confidence cracked. Not all at once. Just enough to let fear seep through. She started talking fast. Explaining. Justifying. Rewriting history in real time. Saying it wasn't what I thought. Saying it was complicated. Saying she'd meant to tell me. I let her talk. When she finished, I said one sentence. You humiliated me in public. I will not protect you in private. That was the moment everything changed. Tell me, are you rooting for me right now? Or do you think I went too far? Be honest in the comments. Uncle Mickle can take it. The fallout was swift. The settlement flipped overnight. Assets she assumed were hers disappeared from the table. The narrative she'd planned collapsed under its own arrogance. Her lawyer stopped smiling. Mine didn't start. For the first time since I'd known her, Sarah cried, and it didn't move me. Not because I was cruel. Because I was done. There was no shouting match. No slammed doors. Just the quiet, devastating sound of consequences arriving right on schedule. She moved out within the month. And the man she'd risked everything for? Gone before the ink dried. That's the thing no one tells you. Affairs thrive on secrecy, not responsibility. And when the lights come on, most people scatter. I stood alone in that house afterward, listening to the silence settle into the walls, and felt something unexpected. Relief. Not victory. Relief. Because the worst thing had already happened, and I was still standing. After the noise fades, after the lawyers stop calling, and the paperwork finally runs out of places to hide, you're left with something no one prepares you for. The quiet. The house felt bigger once Sarah was gone. Not emptier exactly. Just different. The air moved differently through the rooms. Sounds carried farther. I noticed things I tuned out for years. The ticking of the hallway clock. The hum of the refrigerator at night. My own footsteps on the stairs. For a while, I slept on my side of the bed out of habit. Then one night, I rolled to the center and stayed there. It felt symbolic, though I didn't tell anyone that at the time. The divorce finalized without drama after that. No last-minute ambushes. No courtroom theatrics. Just signatures and dates, and the clean ending of something that had been over long before it was acknowledged. The post-nuptial agreement held. Not because I fought loudly, but because I'd prepared quietly. Sarah and I spoke only when necessary. Short, factual exchanges. Logistics. Timelines. There were no more arguments to win. No truths left to uncover. Whatever love we'd shared had already been spent. I heard things through mutual acquaintances. That she was struggling. That she felt embarrassed. That she didn't expect it to end this way. I didn't take pleasure in that. But I didn't carry guilt either. Healing didn't come all at once. It came in fragments. The first time I laughed without forcing it. The first weekend I realized I hadn't checked my phone waiting for her to text. The first morning I woke up without that familiar weight on my chest. I started cooking again. Real meals, not just something quick to get through the evening. I took long walks without headphones, letting my thoughts wander and settle where they needed to. I reconnected with friends I'd slowly drifted from, not because anyone had forbidden it, but because life has a way of narrowing when you're not paying attention. Work stabilized. My focus sharpened. There's something about surviving a personal collapse that makes professional stress feel manageable. Perspective is a powerful thing. Every now and then, the memories still surfaced. Not the affair itself, but the good years, the early mornings, the shared jokes, the version of us that had been real, even if it hadn't lasted. I let those memories exist without fighting them. They didn't own me anymore. Looking back now, I wonder if I'd do it all the same way again. What about you? If you could go back and handle your worst betrayal differently, would you? Or was the pain necessary to become who you are now? Let me know below. I learned things I wish I hadn't had to learn. About trust. About boundaries. About the difference between peace and avoidance. I learned that being calm doesn't mean being passive, and that dignity isn't something someone else can take from you unless you hand it over. Most importantly, I learned that starting over in your 40s isn't the end of the story. It's a new chapter, one written with clearer eyes. I didn't rush into anything after the divorce. No rebound. No declarations. I took time, sat with myself, figured out who I was without the role I'd played for so long. Husband, provider, safe place. Turns out, I was still me. Just wiser. Just more careful with my trust. And far more respectful of my own worth. The house eventually felt like mine again. Not a shared space haunted by what was lost, but a foundation for whatever came next. I didn't need to know exactly what that was. For the first time in a long time, uncertainty didn't scare me. It felt honest. And that honesty was something I planned to carry forward, no matter what. There's a moment, long after the damage is done, when you finally stop asking why. Why she did it. Why you didn't see it sooner. Why love wasn't enough. Those questions don't lead anywhere useful. They just keep you tied to a version of the past that no longer exists. What matters is what you do after the truth shows itself. I used to believe being a good man meant absorbing discomfort, staying quiet, keeping the peace at my own expense. I thought loyalty meant endurance, even when something inside me was begging to be heard. Now I know better. Being good doesn't mean being blind. Being calm doesn't mean being weak. And forgiveness doesn't require you to forget who someone showed you they really were. I didn't destroy my marriage. I survived the moment I realized it had already been destroyed. And I did it without screaming, without dragging anyone through the mud, without losing myself in bitterness. I let consequences speak where emotions would have only made noise. That's not revenge. That's self-respect. So here's my final question for you, and I really want to hear your thoughts. Is it better to forgive and move on, or to make sure they understand exactly what they lost? There's no wrong answer. Drop it in the comments, because every one of us draws that line in a different place. Some people heal by walking away quietly. Some heal by standing their ground. What matters is that you don't stay where you're being diminished. If you're listening to this right now, and you're in the middle of your own storm, hear me when I say this. Clarity will come. Not all at once. Not gently. But it will come. And when it does, you'll be stronger than you think. So that's my story, folks. If it resonated with you, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to know how far Uncle Mickle's voice travels. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stay calm, tell the truth, and walk forward without carrying someone else's guilt.